Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
And Professor Sunreis Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunreis here. In today's class we're taking a look at my experience with Dragon and Bystials. We will go over all of the deck's strengths and weaknesses I discovered in the last 2 weeks with the OG build I had at the region as well. And then the fixes I have planned or have actually used for the deck in the current time. So we will be going over, like I said, the strength, the weakness, and afterwards we'll do a deck profile with all of the changes I had, and we'll take a look at that. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So here we are, like I said, in the experience part. I will go over all of the new strength, or more or less new, but more importantly, new weaknesses I found with the deck and how my approaches are to fix them in the actual deck profile that. So, like I said, strength, weakness, fixes. For the strengths, of course, the T element matchup is by far the best thing the deck has. And no surprise, this is nothing new, but I feel like it is very important to keep that in mind because we can actually take some of the strength we have in the T element matchup and just slightly turn it down, lower the amount of Bystials we are playing, so we still have a good amount, but just turn it down a little bit so we have more room for other defensive cards. But most importantly, the insane of the deck, the insane resources this deck can generate is absurd. We have Magnemite, we have Seal, we have Regain. All of these basically allow us to trigger Magnemite at every turn, so we can at least +1 every turn. With Regain, most of the time we actually just +2 in every turn, which is absurd. And then secondly, the board breaking this deck has is kind of good because the amount of stuff we can force out with Bystials over battle phase, the removal we have for playing with Truthworm, with Levy, stuff like that is really helpful at breaking board and then making use of the insane resources. We can go battle phase early, run over a few bodies, and then force out negates that way. And then we can use our insane resource loop with Regain and Magnum to just stay in the game and just completely annihilate them after to turn 2 or 3. The weaknesses, the sprite matchup, surprisingly. I thought it was easy because when I started playing this deck with Bystial Control, there were not a lot of people on. I think, first of all, the Mosquito was just barely released, so there were not a lot of people on it. And secondly, not a lot of people were on Dupfrog, but now the sprite matchup kind of shits on us because the endboard is just slightly too hard to out, especially with the third point being the generic cantrips, but I will go over that. But secondly, the Mosquito OTK just really shits on Borderland Savage because while it is a very hard board to out, you can just get OTK through it like easy. So you have to kind of work around that. Then secondly, the amount of breaks with Breaded Beast and then the 3 Rokket bricks in Recharger, Boot Sector, and the Ravine is just way too much. You really have to fix it at some point because while going first, it is mostly fine. Going second, it can really hinder the consistency. And then thirdly, the generic cantrip spots I had in Imperm and Vader were just not cutting it. While they were good against T elements, against Sprite, they were just not enough because most of the time I just hand looped myself on them for one, and they still ended on full board essentially because they have so many ways to play around them. You have to play around Heartron Swap Frogs, you have to play around Red, you have to play around Starters, stuff like that. It is just a lot. So the hand traps were just really not that performing in my opinion. So yeah, these are the weaknesses I saw with the deck. Of course, there are still weaknesses in the Flunder matchup and in Shifter and in Droll, but those are not something which this is something I knew of course. But these are the breaks I tried to fix with my new approach to this list. So let's just take a look at the new list. So let's get into the profile, by the way. Yeah, let's just get into it. This is for a dueling book meta because there are not a lot of tournaments at the moment. On even the tournaments there are way less T elements play than they used to be, at least here in Germany in my regional meta. So yeah, let's just get into that. So this is not for a major event. So for the Chaos stuff, of course, the best cards in the deck. 3 Safered, 3 Chaos Base. If you see these, you most likely will win the game. Going first at least, let's say, because these are just insane at playing through stuff. Apart from like an Ash weakness, these are god. Then of course the small Chaos Dragons, pretty standard. Trying to loop them is very important. With the new approach to the Bystial engine, this is way easier. And then for the big Chaos stuff, the big boy Wuho I call him, so the Chaos Emperor, Imperator Dragon, I don't know, and 1 Levy. I didn't play the Levy before, but I feel like it is so important to play it just because it offers so much more versatility going first, in the sense that you can go for the hand loop, of course, but most importantly, it is an extra body. It is a way to trigger the regain, so it just gives a lot. And then going second, it is also just a board breaking tool. And with the cards I play in the extra deck, I can make better use out of random bodies like that. So I actually really like the levy, and it is performing insanely well, depending on the circumstance. For example, if I get hand trap once and then I can talents and I still have access to levy, I even put more emphasis on this than I put emphasis on the Rokket engine. So if I already have Safer, I'd rather send a Ravine, send with Ravine the levy, just because then I can rip kind of like 3 cards out of them, one with talents, one from the hand trap, and then one with them. So they start with 3 cards against like probably like Seal and something, which is like very hard for them to get back off, just because we just generate way more resources than they would ever have the ability to do so. So that's the Chaos Engine, of course. For the Bystials, some things did change. So I'm on 3 Magnamid, 3 Libellion, 3 Magnamid. Of course, this is standard. Surprise, surprise. These are the best Bystials there, because Libellion gets you to Magnamid. A Magnamid is... Wait, that's a Serenia. A Magnamid is just an insane card, of course. And then for the extra ones, I have 2 Serenia and 1 Dru's Worm, because the Bystials, while they are really good and they can still perform against Sprite, because they have dupe proc, now even 2 Bystials is not enough to just push into battle phase and pressure them a lot, together with a normal summon or something like that. So I figured it was not worth it to go for those that many anymore. So I'd rather have just the 6 in the main deck, because they are all you really need for the engine. They're still extenders at worst. Serenia, of course, is insane because it sends Libellion, so then your Ravine can send just a Safer and get you into the Bystial engine, stuff like that. But other than that, I feel like not maining as many of them is the correct approach at the moment, and will probably, well, like 99% be the better approach in the next format as well, just because Kashtira is on the horizon and Bystials don't do shit against them. So I really like the way how these play. And then for the Bystial spell traps, I am only on 1 Branded Regained. My Bandit Breed is very good, and I'm thinking about siding it in the foreseeable future. I won't do it maybe in the next format, where the pop will be a little better than currently it is. But Bandit Regain is so important to establish in turn 1, because you really want to get the draw one and also the recycle in there as well, just to maximize the amount of resources you can get. And then lastly, it is also very good to just have established if you are playing into a Nib, because Nib is getting a little popular here on Dueling Book. So just having this established and having a seal on board makes it so that you immediately will have 2 bodies after you get Nib, which is insane, because then you can just turn them into a Masquerena, and then you still have some disruption with the Branded Regained and Masquerena on the next turn. So I really like that. And just the lower amount of bricks, Branded Beast not being very that good in the current format, and me actually going for Branded Regained over Branded Beast every time I go first, I felt like cutting Branded Beast is good, because it would only ever come up in grind games where your regain gets out and then you can get just into a Branded Beast. And at this point, I'd almost rather play a second Branded Beast than a second Branded Regain than a Branded Beast. But yeah, that's it for the Bystial engine. Lots have changed with that, not from a card-to-card standpoint, but from how I use them and how I play with them. But this is kind of hard to explain, of course, in a deck profile like that. So for the Rockets, of course, 3 quick launch. I thought about cutting this to 2, just because I wanted some space, but this is like one of the few ways we can extend through a normal summon being popped or banished, other than Libellion and just the Bystial. But yeah, quick launch is just insane, especially going second with Barone, because I still play a good amount of Bystials. I think this is fine to play still. Then 2 Tracer, of course. You just need to see any one of them, and then your hand is already pretty decently off if you have a starter with it. And then Absolute and Noctivision, of course, for the Sacred play. I thought I'd like to play second copy of Noctivision. My thought process for a while was to play even more hand traps and then play a second copy of Noctivision, so that I go like turbo through my deck, because I then result a Nocto, a Regain, a Chaos Base, and I just draw a shit ton of cards and draw a shit ton of hand traps. The space, sadly, is just not there to make that work. Noctivision is really good, but fitting in a second copy is so hard, and it can still break, of course, if you don't resolve your normal summon. But with the amount of Bystials one can play now, you have way more access into dark special summons. Dark Dragons, I think you need for this one. Yeah. So this is less bricky. But for now, I'm still only at 1. And then for the bricks, 1 ravine. This is like fine to draw. I started appreciating drawing this because this makes me just go for seal immediately and then just skip the whole borderland line, because this is kind of bait against the sprite opponent, like I said, because they can just OTK so easily through that, because they force out the borderland quite early with either Jet, because they could search as smashers, but at the moment I will just let that go through. But most importantly with Gigantic, because we said we cannot use borderland after Gigantic, of course, because we don't play the Rokket Synchron. But even then we couldn't do it because it's level 1. Yeah. So just getting a ravine and then getting into a seal very early is so strong against, most importantly, Sprite, but also against Nip. So I really don't see this much as a break. Like these two are, these two are just insane breaks. But though I have actually started to appreciate the effect of Recharge, it is insane. The way I currently do it, I try to end on Recharger and Graveyard, recycle it with the Drew's Worm, and either my turn if I have a Levy, or on the opponent's turn, and then I can use my, against Sprite most importantly, I can use my Rokket Tracer. I summon off the Borderland if I end for that, because I'm blind. I blind, I still bank the board, so against them I can still use the Tracer to pop the Drew's Worm and summon the second the Recharger, which is recycled out of the deck. So this is something which I've been trying to aim for a lot against Sprite. So if I go blind against them, I still try to end on Borderland, of course. And then I won't really have a use for the Drew's Worm, but I can use the Recharger, the Tracer on the Drew's Worm, then just to get a pop 1, which is mostly enough to survive then, because Savage and Borderland are still decent disruption against them, but it's just that they're not enough on their own. So yeah, that's it for the Rokket engine. Pretty standard, I would say. Did not really miss anything because I started to put a lot of emphasis on recycling the Recharger. I don't think I need a second copy of like a Recharger or any other target for that. So I feel like I'm fine on that department, and then I can just save myself the bricks. Now the defensive card, this is where stuff is really popping off. Of course, 3 talents, pretty broken card. But then in the main deck, I am on 3 Gammas and 3 Dark Rulers. I felt like these were the strongest against Sprite, so I really wanted to play them. They are still decent against tier elements, because Gamma just stops the tier elements name, so this is like a bad Bystial. And if I don't draw any Bystials or no hand traps, the Dark Rulers actually also fine against them. Gamma is also insane against Shifter and Droll, and they are also really good against Flunger. So I felt like these were like the most generic going first cards I could play, and the deck can actually make use of Gamma going first quite effectively with the way Seal works. So if you can just Seal bounce something, then Seal will always be chaining 1 because it's mandatory. Then if your opponent has any trigger effects like tier element names, whatever, you can make Seal chaining 1, they will do their chain as chaining 2, and then you can Gamma them. So this is, I never had it like where this was just stuck in my hand and I couldn't use it. So I really like the Gamma. So while it is an additional brick, it is not a brick which makes you go minus, because it would have been a free search, which seems kind of weird. But all of the other ones are like free searches, and you actually play with 1 less card. But because our combo actually uses 1 discard anyways, the driver is not that bad to draw going first. Going second, of course, it is a whole different story. But going first, it is actually decent to draw it. Of course, not ideal, but it is decent. So that's the main deck, of course, 40 cards, because we really want to see the Sacred and the Chaos base. These are the strongest cards, so we will never go over 40. Not even 41, I feel like, but maybe in the future we'll have to go for that. So for the extra deck, pretty standard, of course, the Borderland line with Striker, Pisty, Romulus, Triple Burst, and Borderland. I am not on the quad barrel stuff, just because while it is, of course, very cool, it takes a lot of space out of the deck, which I'd rather have for different stuff, because the quad barrel stuff requires a lot of other stuff to be there in the deck, so it's not just 2 cards, it's way more, so you cannot really make room for it, in my opinion, at least for now. Maybe I will do it in next format, but for now I just really like all of the stuff I have. Then 2 Seal and 1 IP Masquerena. So the new approach against Sprite is to just end on Seal Masquerena, because of course it is a lot of disruption with Seal plus Jerusalem removing 2 bodies and this removing a 3rd one. You can basically make them stop play whenever you want, apart from if they have like a normal summon Swap Frog plus the fish guy with Nimble Beaver. No, not Nimble Angler. So if they have Swap Frog, Nimble Angler plus Starter and a normal summon or something like that, they can still play through that. but most importantly, this 9 out of 10 times will force out their battle phase, just because it is so easy to force it out, and then we don't die, and then we can easily just on the crackback kill their board and just win the game in the resource loop. Because the strongest thing was Sprite just cannot grind against this deck because they cannot deal with so many Bystials on the board. But it's just getting them. The Mosquito OTK is really good against Borderlands and Savage because they have such high attacks. They only need like 2 extra additional bodies to do it. So I really like that. Like I said, also the Masquerena, it does help play through a Nibiru, and oftentimes, for example, if I have these leftover random levy bodies, I started to end on Brawl and Masquerena plus Savage with just one additional disruption, but it's really showing because Brawl and Savage is just 2 disruptions. So just having that one additional one can really help this deck out. And I've really liked the Masquerena in the extra deck. I've been using it a little more than I would say way more than in the start of the deck when I just learned it, because I just saw new lines which I haven't seen before. Now for generic stuff, of course, the Dark line into access code, pretty standard. The one slot I feel like I could cut because I play less Bystials in the main deck is the Attune right now, but this card is just so insane. Making Bystials against the elements and then just turning your destruction into your engine is just broken, and it's just 1 slot, and for Quad Brawl I would still need 2 slots, and there's nothing else I would cut, so I still feel like I would play this at the moment, just because I don't see a better card. And now for the Synchros, 1 Savage, pretty broken. Not really, it is pretty standard at this point. 1 Scarlight for time, because I don't want to get screwed over by time rules, and like I said, this is a dueling book deck list, but still the Scarlet actually comes up being an additional Synchro 8, but most importantly just being insane at breaking boards and OTKing. If your opponent has a shit ton of cards there in a grind game, like a shit ton of random Bystial, stuff like that, you just go for Scarlet, you burn them for like 2k, and then you attack for 3k, and then you just need 1 Bystial afterwards, or 1 like Borderland or something like that. So this card is really strong. Won me a few games already. I think there was also a replay on this channel where this just was just there to win me the game, so I really like it. And then 1 Baron. Card is also nuts, of course, being able to use the Bystial and Rokket Synchron, and not Rokket Synchron, Rokket Recharger / Quick Launch to just put so much pressure already on the board is really helpful at breaking boards, or just using that in a simplified game state. Use Magnum to surge Recharger, stuff like that, to go into that against certain matchup. If you know the opponent doesn't have any disruption, Baron by itself is just game already, or gets you into a game because the opponent cannot react to anything you do. Now for the side deck, I'm not like 100% sure of the side deck. I've noticed a few side patterns are a little bit weird, but I'm currently on 3 Nip. This goes in against basically everything going first, because I have Dark Rule and Gamma. But I feel like going first Nip is very good against everything, just because there are very little decks which can break your board and play through a Nip at the same time. I just really figured this was very good, especially if I just want to go for Seal Masquerena going first, and not overcommit into a Brawl end line. Then I can always have basically always have Engine with either Regained or Magnum or all of the other cards I haven't had. So the Nip just becomes like kind of like a floodgate going first. So I really like that, and then just on the next turn I can kill them. I play the additional Bystials. Of course, against the elements, I would definitely still want to have those. Then I play the Lightning Storm because Flunder is still in the matchup, in the meta. 3 draw against Flunder and like random decks, which is just hurts. I really feel like it's still a very good card. There's so many decks, but this just completely crushes them. And then last 3 Rivalry. This card is insane. It won me so many games. Every time I see this going first, I basically win. Just because people don't play back row removal, apart from like maybe a Lightning Storm, but we still have a Savage against that. And then Rivalry is just an auto win. This is also why I kind of want to go into Deep Draw, just because getting into the Rivalry is just so strong. And having like 3 ways to draw into it mid-combo with, like I said, all of the cards we play would have felt amazing. But yeah, I will probably stick to this list for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. Definitely not a lot of changes apart from the defensive cards, but I feel like these really help. But most importantly, I just got better and better with the deck, saw better lines, saw more resource effective lines, especially with the cards we want to banish and recycle with the regain. There's a lot of stuff I still do wrong with that, just because there's so many approaches of recycling Striker, recycling Recharger, putting stuff into banish for the big guy, having enough lights and darks in the grave to resolve your levy, resolve your chaos emperor, stuff like that. This is very important with the deck, and I still sometimes struggle against that, especially on Dueling Book, where I'm not always 100% hyper focused. But anyways, I love this deck. I will definitely keep playing this for the foreseeable future. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I am trying to regularly stream on Mondays and Wednesdays at my Twitch down below, so definitely check that out. Without further ado, class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.